If someone sold their soul to the devil for fame and fortune, is it possible they have actually ended up cursing their fans? And then we take a look at the story that asks the age-old question, one debated by philosophers since the dawn of time. Who would you rather fight? A ghost or an alien? Would you rather be trapped in a haunted house or beamed aboard an alien ship? Many minds have tried to think about this question, and all of them cannot come up with an answer. I mean, I know what I would rather be. I'd rather be in a haunted house. I'd just like, see you later, I walk out the door. I can't walk out a spaceship. I'd plummet to my death. But great minds around the world for ages have tried wondering, what would be worse, being attacked by a ghost or being attacked by an alien? But what if the true answer is, it doesn't matter? Because ghosts and aliens actually are working together. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. This is our first episode after the 2-week break. I didn't put any repeats out. I didn't do any retro rabbits because I needed a clean 2-week break to just kind of sit and do nothing. And it was super helpful. I feel really, really refreshed. Also, let me know if this episode is louder. You're like, you're trying to take your headphones off. The volume of the podcast has not been where it's needed to be, so I'm trying out some different things. So let me know if this, once your hearing returns, once you get out of the doctor's office, your ears stop bleeding, let me know if this episode is loud enough. You're like, Jason, you're loud. You're a loud person. It's always loud enough. Well, it's not as loud as it used to be, but someone who's always as loud as they used to be. Someone who has no volume control. Running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for one of our newest Patreon supporters, Iris Kit. Woohoo! Yeah, yeah, she's running on in. Her ears are still bleeding, but she has a big smile on her face. Iris Kit is a longtime personal friend of me. I've known her for quite a while. Probably 10, 15 years at this point. Maybe a little bit longer than that. Really, really cool cat. I know her, and now she's a member of the Fluffles. She's a member of the Patreon. Iris, that is why you are going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the Patreon or the merch store, I totally understand. I really do. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Okay, Iris, let's go ahead and get this party started. I'm going to toss you the keys to the Jason Jalopy. Everyone climb on board this beautiful little hunk of junk. This little chitty chitty bang bang car. Everyone climb on board as Iris fires it up. We're leaving behind Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Why don't you drive us all the way out to Brazil? You know, actually, before we get to Brazil, I gotta mention this. We're kind of still working on this. Iris and I, a long time ago, we, along with some other friends, I don't remember all of the details, but back in Citrus Heights, and again, we've been trying to, I think she found this on Google Earth recently. I'm putting her straight in the line of fire of this cult. We were all friends down in Citrus, we didn't live together, but we all lived in the area of Citrus Heights back in the day, Citrus Heights, California. And I remember once we have a mutual friend. I don't know if she wants her name associated with this podcast, probably not associated with this story. But anyways, long story short, we came across because a friend of ours was looking for property in the area and they poked their head over a fence. We became aware of in Citrus Heights, there's this backyard with a statue in it. But not like a normal looking statue. It was a weird, almost cult-like statue. It wasn't like 9 feet tall. It wasn't a giant statue of Moloch. Wasn't draped in human blood. I mean, like, if you might just go, oh, Jason, it's a garden gnome. I'm like, I'm running away. Gnomes. No, it was like a weird statue. It seemed more than a decorative statue. And it actually kind of was very eerie. And I remember this was towards the end of my time in Citrus Heights. I was moving not too long after we had made this discovery, but there was this house in Citrus Heights with this really weird statue in the backyard, and it was just kind of off-putting. And me and Iris and our other friend, who we'll call her Lacey, I don't know if she wants her real name revealed on the podcast, but we were talking about trying to figure out, like, did a cult operate out of this home? Because it had really high fences. Like, you really had to kind of jump up to get a view of this statue. If I remember correctly, Iris may be able to say, no, none of that's true. It didn't look like Pan. It looked like a normal statue. You didn't jump. Jason, you've never jumped in your life. But it's funny because me and Iris have recently reconnected through the show. And we talked about the statue, and she's like, oh my God, yeah, I totally remember that statue. And she's been looking for it through Google Earth, and I believe she sent me over some images. Again, I kind of want to touch base with her, and I'll kind of fill you in the story as it goes on, but it was really odd. And I remember at the time, though, talking to some kids in the area, they're in their teens in the area. I asked around about this house. I wasn't going to go knock on the door because I know that cults are real. I know that cults exist. And I know that I was not going to say you have good cults and bad cults. I think a good cult is normally just kind of like a secret society, which they may have intentions that may or may not affect you. They may or may not damage you. They're just up to something that will definitely enrich them in some way. And then a cult, these are all like terms that we use, right? When does a secret society, when does a fraternity that have pledges and they have these secret oaths, when does it become a cult? Is kind of what I'm showing the difference there. You can have drinking buddies together and they call themselves the Rowdy Roberts, and none of them are called Robert. They had an old fella they used to drink with named Robert who died, and they decided to become the Rowdy Roberts. And they gave themselves these nicknames and these rituals, and they just like to get together every so often and burn a picture of a man named Robert. I can't think of any famous Roberts off the top of my head. Robert Mitchum. You're like, who's that? He's an old actor. But anyways, my point being is, Robert Downey Jr. That's a better one. They're burning pictures of Robert Downey Jr. That's not a cult that's going to affect you in any sort of way, unless they're like, it's time to burn a real Robert. We're looking at you, Bobby. No, it doesn't affect you in any way, right? Secret society, those exist, obviously, and there's different levels of that. Sometimes it's the Rowdy Robert, which is something I just made up. You're all like, you're freaking out, your name's Robert. You're like, I better not burn alive this weekend. They have these weird rituals that they do, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really have any bearing on your life. A cult, and these are my definitions, I don't know if a scholar would agree with me, but a cult, while their policies or beliefs may not affect you directly, they're definitely probably more up to something than the Rowdy Roberts. You're like, yes, Jason, that group you made up, it doesn't exist. You can give them any sort of moral equivalent that you want to. I can do that. I can go, well, over here there's Satan worshipers, and over here is a group I just made up. These guys are better than the Satan. Anyways, I'm getting off point. My point is that if I would rather infiltrate a secret society than a cult, is what I'm saying. Because if I enter a secret society, they may go, okay, we're trying to raise real estate in this area to make more money, and we're drinking at the same time. We're also burning people named Robert. I was like, my name's not Robert. I'm not really worried about that. But a cult, they may be, we need more members. We need to brainwash people. They don't say that part. Someone who's in the church is like, wait, did he just say brainwashed? Am I brainwashed? Are we brainwashed? People are like, yeah, it's kind of weird they said that out loud. We have to do these things to save the non-believers, whether they like it or not, or we have to kill the non-believers, or we have this apocalyptic vision of the world. We're a cult. Again, they don't ever call themselves a cult, but you know what I'm saying. I'm not going to go knock on the door of someone who I believe is engaged in cult or cult-adjacent activities. But I will go to the Elks Lodge in town when they're showing UFC fights for free. So that's the difference between the two. I didn't want to knock on this door of this house in Citrus Heights. The big sign out, it says free UFC fights for all cult members. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I brought my own hooded robe. I'm like, yes. We'll run on in there. I didn't want to knock on the door of this cult. I was still in the beginning. Me and Iris were still in the beginning of investigating this place. Anyways, I talked to these kids in the area, And two of them, I ran into two of them and I go, hey, do you know anything about that house? I used to know the address. That's the thing. We're trying to figure it out. And I think Iris figured out where it was. So if this cult's going to come after anyone, not me. I don't remember where it's at. Cult, go find Iris. I believe she sent me over a photo. I didn't plan on talking about this. That's why I keep saying I don't have any notes on this. But I believe she sent me over a photo. I talked to two kids in the area, though. I remember this. And I asked, hey, so what's up with that house on such and such street? I knew the address and all that stuff at the time. And the kids go, oh, yeah, no, we don't go over there. That's a weirdo house. I was like, yeah, it's kind of what I figured. And the room, now they did not know this directly. They didn't know this directly, but the word in town was, don't go to that house. Kids have gone to that house and they've disappeared. I don't know if that's true. They didn't know if that was true. They had heard that. But they didn't know anyone directly who had visited the house and not come out. I don't know if any of that part is true, and to be fair, neither did they. But it was very interesting that we had come across this house randomly, and there was already lore about this house among teenagers in that area. Now, it's possible they were feeding me a line, but they didn't really know what I was looking for. They could have been like, hey, the next guy who comes up to us and asks us about a house, any house, we'll tell them that kids disappear there. Some realtor's like, hey, do you know who lives here? And they're like, no, we don't. Everyone mysteriously disappeared. The realtor's like, that's why I always walk into empty houses. I'm part of the curse. Now, oddly enough, I didn't plan on telling that story. I was just telling you it because we'll probably continue to investigate it, and Iris is directly involved in that. She's the person. If the cult comes after me, it's Iris. I'm giving you up, Iris. No. I don't think there's any danger from it. Neither of us live in the area anymore. And maybe there's nothing to it. Maybe there's a lot to it. We don't know. But it's funny. I didn't plan on talking about that. It was only because I was talking about Iris. But in a way, it does have something to do with his first story. In a way, it does actually kind of roll into what we're about to talk about. We're headed all the way down to Brazil. Specifically, we're headed to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And even more specific than that, we're headed to the Copacabana Beach. It's May 4th, 2025. Ooh, baby, boo, doo, baby, oh, doo. Your ears are bleeding again. You're like, damn it. I just got the volume adjusted. I didn't expect you were going to start singing a generic, uncopyrightable, claimed song. We're at a Lady Gaga concert. 2 million people showed up to this concert on May 4th, 2025. All the Little Monsters, which is the name of fan base of Lady Gaga, are there. They're having a ball. You could say they're having a blast. Because, did you know, and some of you guys probably do, this was really big news, there was a targeted terrorist plot to attack this Lady Gaga concert. On April 30th, the local authorities put together a operation called Fake Monster to break up a terrorist plot against Lady Gaga's concert. And it's very interesting because they are not revealing the name of the organization that planned this. It wasn't like ISIS. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't a terrorist group that most people are familiar with. But they're refusing to say the group who was involved in this because I looked all over for this. I had a couple of suspicions about who it could be. They refused to name it because what they gathered, the main goal of this attack, well, there was two goals. One of them was to create worldwide popularity for this terrorist group. They wanted to go viral. And that's why the police aren't saying the name of this group. The other reason why they specifically targeted a Lady Gaga concert was because they wanted to kill as many people in the gay community as they could. So it wasn't like they were bombing a military barracks. It wasn't like they were blowing up coffee shops. No, they wanted to kill as many gay, lesbian, trans people as they could. This was a targeted attack against the queer community. Now, it didn't happen. The police moved very swiftly on this, so quickly, in fact, that Lady Gaga and her people were unaware that any of this was going on. They found out about this Operation Fake Monster, about this terrorist threat towards the concert. They found out about it in the news when everyone else did. Lady Gaga sitting there in her recording studio, And she's like, okay, I got a new concept album. I just did a bunch of adrenochrome. Oh, I feel immortal. And they go, Lady Gaga, Lady Gaga. They probably just call her Stephanie. I don't think any of her people call her Lady Gaga, Miss Gaga. Stephanie, which is her real name. Stephanie, remember that thing you did in Brazil? Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. Well, yeah, it was, because the police broke up a terrorist attack. And Stephanie's like, huh? Her eyes are bleeding. She's like, oh, whenever I cry on adrenochrome, it's infant blood. Oh. Anyways, here's the thing. This very interesting story because they wanted to blow up a bunch of people at this Lady Gaga concert, and they wanted to gain online fame, notoriety for this attack. Now, there were 15 search warrants spread across 4 different states in Brazil. So far, 3 people have been arrested. One of them, the leader of the group, was arrested on weapons charges. Apparently, he had bombs or bomb-making material on him. The idea was that him and his followers were going to have explosives in their backpacks. They were going to go to this concert and detonate them. It was suicide bombing. They're also going to throw Molotovs into the crowd. I mean, think about the chaos. We kind of jumped past that, and we're already in the part where they're getting arrested. Could you imagine being in a group? It'd be bad enough if you were in a room with 30 people and a backpack bomb went off. Imagine that. You're in a club with 30 people and all of a sudden there's this impossibly loud explosion. The next thing you know is you smell gunpowder and human blood. That'd be bad enough. But now imagine you're in a group of 2 million people. You're right in the middle. Standing in the middle of 2 million people, all of a sudden off in the distance, you see an explosion and a bunch of people scream, and you look over, you're like, oh my God, what happened? And then you hear an explosion to your right, you turn around, you see it there. What? And then you start seeing Molotovs getting thrown around, you turn around, there's another explosion behind you. The trample damage alone would probably cause more casualties than the bombs themselves. Imagine 2 million people stampeding in opposite directions all at the same time. It's a miracle that this didn't happen. It's good police work. Apparently, this group was targeting minors, not with the bombs. They were recruiting minors via Discord. Discord is an online communication app, if you're not aware of that. So they were using Discord to recruit minors to their cause. They were using Discord to recruit minors online. Minors in, as far as we know, Brazil, right? Since they're not saying the name of the group, who knows how widespread this is. This operation could be global. It seems they've at least broken up what was in Brazil. The idea was that you'd get these kids to go to this concert and detonate suicide bombs and throw Molotovs and kill as many gay, lesbian, trans people as you can. And it would cause the group to get all this notoriety. So the leader, and they haven't revealed his name, the leader was arrested. He was charged with weapons charges. You had one young man, a minor, was arrested during this sweep, who was a part of this organization, but he was arrested because he had possession of child porn on him, which is a whole other horrible crime. He's part of the group, but he didn't have any other weapons on him. What's interesting, and I mean, the whole thing is interesting. You're like, wait, what? What is going on? This is the first I've ever heard of this. Kid had child porn. He was about to kill a bunch of people at a concert, but wait, what? You're drinking your morning coffee? You're like, I'm glad you took a nice break. I'm glad you refreshed, Jason. This is insane. What's interesting is I've read multiple articles about this, and I still haven't been able to figure out this last part. Because some articles said a separate incident. This was something that was not related to the bombing and the Molotov attack that thankfully was stopped. Some articles made it sound like this guy was part of the group, and other articles made it sound this is completely separate. This has nothing to do with whatever cult terror group was going to pull out these attacks. But so I think it's separate. I think this was just something they stumbled upon while they were looking into this. Apparently, a man was arrested. He wasn't planning on doing any sort of bombings. He had, arguably, a more grotesque goal. You know, you go, they're both horrible, Jason. Not everything has to be an either or with you. Both aliens and ghosts are terrifying. Both these stories are horrible. There was a guy who had planned on going to the Lady Gaga concert And because he believes Lady Gaga is a Satan worshiper, he decided to perform a satanic ceremony at the Lady Gaga concert. Kind of makes sense, right? Imagine if you were Catholic and you went to your cathedral, your church, during Mass and held a second... This actually sounds like an awesome prank. Where are the Impractical Jokers when you need them? You go to Mass while they're performing Mass and you hold a second Mass in the back. That's... You're like, step right up. Oh, you think you're getting the full Christian experience from that guy? Well, let me tell you right here, I'm the certified, birtified #1 priest. Do they have security at churches? Yeah, you could go, you dress up as a priest, and you're standing in the back and you're holding a different Mass. You'd obviously be distracting. If anyone asked you to go, well, think about it. This is the most Mass it could get. Like, I'm being extra Christian. I'm doing a Christian service at a Christian service. So that makes it double, right? That's how that works, right? I have 2 Bibles. I stack them on top of each other. It's a better Bible. People are like, I don't know if that works like that. This guy decides to perform a satanic ceremony at a Lady Gaga concert because he believes she's satanic. We've covered Lady Gaga a ton of times on this show. Some of the earliest episodes are about Lady Gaga. She definitely does weird stuff. I don't know if I would call her a 100% avowed Satan worshiper. I don't know if she's ever come out and said that she's a Satan worshiper. She does do some weird stuff. It's definitely one of those people where you go, well, you know, we cover a lot of stuff about people selling their souls, and you go, oh, okay, listen, there's a few people who in the world you think if anyone sold their souls, it's them, just based on things that have happened in their past. Lady Gaga does seem to be like one of them. So does Seth McFarland. We did an episode on that. Now, as I've gotten older, I actually like Seth MacFarlane more. I was not a fan of his when I was younger. Now I can tolerate him. Right? Before I hated his guts, and now I'm like, okay, fine. I'm looking forward to the new Naked Gun movie. You got me. After 30 years of pumping out content, I finally liked something you did. But I think Seth MacFarlane, it's quite possible that he sold his soul to the devil. I don't believe every celebrity sold their soul to the devil. I definitely don't think all of them did. But when you look at people like Lady Gaga, you look at people like Seth MacFarlane, I'll put those episodes in the show notes. Who knows? But I don't necessarily think she's a Satan worshiper. However, she does appear to be a Satan worshiper. For sure. She definitely has all of the music videos and all of the imagery that would make an average person goes, oh, if you didn't know who that person was, if I just showed you clips of her videos, you would go, oh, that's a Satan worshiper. I don't know if she is, though. You're like, Jason, you famously called her a murderer multiple times. I don't know why you're hedging your bets on the whole Satan worshiper thing. Well, anyways, my point is that this guy, and they haven't revealed any of these names, this guy decided to go to Lady Gaga's concert because she's a Satan worshiper, and therefore all of her music is satanic, and her songs are rituals. We've covered all this stuff on the show before. It does seem like that. He goes, I'm going to go to one of the biggest satanic ceremonies in human history. 2 million people. Most of them have no idea what Lady Gaga is truly about, but this guy says he knows. All of these songs are hypnotic. All of this stuff is Satan-based. It's all infusing the dark power of the world into 2 million people. So this guy decides to hold a separate satanic ceremony during the concert. Some of the articles said he was at the concert. He was actually planning on doing this at the concert before he was arrested. Some of the articles said he was just going to watch. He was just going to watch television. It's kind of lazy. If you're going to do the Satan thing, you should probably show up. But anyways, luckily he didn't do it. He said, I'm going to perform a satanic ceremony at or during, at a different location, but we'll just say at from here on out. I'm going to go to Lady Gaga's concert. I'm going to show her what a true little monster is. I'm a big monster. He goes, this was his plan, he's going to go to the Lady Gaga concert, and while he's there, while Lady Gaga is singing these songs, he was going to perform a satanic ceremony. And you go, Jason, religious freedom and all of that stuff. Who cares if some guy goes out there and is saying, "Hail Lucifer, hail Satan," all that stuff, right? Yeah, I mean, I don't care if someone's a Satan worshiper and they're a humanist, the Church of Satan, that stuff doesn't bug me at all. It's freedom of religion, it's freedom of speech. That wasn't what he was doing. He's not a Church of Satan worshiper, which, we have in America. It's a recognized religion. No, a Satanist. This guy was going to go to the concert, and while Lady Gaga was performing, he was going to sacrifice a human baby. That type of satanic ritual. His plans were to sacrifice a human child, an infant, during this Lady Gaga concert. Now, the police, this is an interesting question. You're going to think I'm making a joke. But the police have not said, was he bringing his own baby? Like, not necessarily his child, maybe his kid. We don't know. It just said he was going to sacrifice a kid during, some article said he was doing it in the state of Macfarlane. It's not a state, sorry, it's a city in Rio de Janeiro, or a neighborhood in Rio de Janeiro, a place called Macfarlane. Some people said he was actually at the concert. But anyways, the point is that, was he going to sacrifice a kid that he already had, a neighbor's kid, or his own kid, or, here's the thing, I'm not making fun of this, but I'm honestly curious about this. Imagine that you're like, Jason, please don't say, imagine that I'm about to sacrifice a baby. Imagine that you are on the sunny beaches of the Copacabana beach. You're at the sunny Copacabana beach. And you are a avowed Satanist who has decided to perform a satanic ceremony at a Lady Gaga concert. You're going to sacrifice a human infant. But you don't have one at home. So here's my thing, it's pretty poor planning. Because I will argue, how many people brought their babies to a concert? Like, if he didn't bring a baby with him, how would he find one? Like, it's not really well thought out. Honestly, that sounds really kind of edgy and a poorly constructed satanic ritual. Now, if he had his own kid, that's absolutely terrifying. If he had a kid from the neighborhood, if he was a father, that is horrifying and not funny. Hey, don't laugh at that. That's not funny. But imagine for a second a man wanting to sacrifice. You're like, Jason, that's not funny either. We're talking about it. Imagine about a man who really wants to sacrifice an infant to Satan, but he can't find one. Is that my phone ringing? Adam Sandler. He's like, oh, a great idea for his script. A man that's not a bad idea. Not sacrificing the baby, that's horrible, but performing a satanic ceremony during a mass satanic, hypnotic, Illuminati-driven music festival. Like, in and of itself, that makes sense. It's evil, it's diabolical. Leave the baby, leave the human sacrificing stuff out, but you're piggybacking on the energy of 2 million people. If he had a more low-key, dark ritual to perform, he's drawing sigils in the dirt, people are dancing on him. He's like, no, you released the demons, Going to a place like this to perform a ritual actually really makes sense. It does. We remove the morals from it, it would make sense to do some sort of diabolical incantation there, because you're feeding off the energy of everyone around you. But the baby thing's horrifying, but I wonder if he brought his own baby, if he had a kid with him. Because I can understand that this guy's obviously an idiot, because he's planning on killing a baby. Right, that's already kind of makes you a big dummy. You're like, or worse, you can use worse words. I'm all walking through death row, I was like, you dummies! You big old dummies, they're all crying. They're like, oh, no one's called us a dummy before. If someone had called me a dummy, I wouldn't have massacred that family. Nothing but a bunch of dummies. I can imagine someone who's that sick in the head that they're going to sacrifice a kid, that they honestly would just go, oh, I'm going to walk into a crowd of 2 million people. I'm sure there's at least like 100 babies. Now, that probably would be true. If you walk through a city, a population of 2 million people, you're going to bump into 100 babies. You're going to see mothers. You're going to walk into Starbucks. There's going to be a baby working the counter. He gets a lot of tips. It's so adorable. You always give them a tip. You see babies everywhere in a city of 2 million people. You'd see a ton of babies throughout your day, but not at a Lady Gaga concert. They're called the little monsters, not that little. No one's bringing their baby. Okay, maybe some people would bring their baby, but in a crowd of 2 million people, you'd probably find like 10 moms who couldn't get babysitters. And they have their babies with them. Babies are just, they're deaf. They have no hearing left. They're like, you just are born. The mom comes out of the hospital. She's like, oh, I just had this baby. I'm going to name you Alejandro. We're going to the Lady Gaga concert. You're like, just walking out. The doctor's like, I think we need to stitch you up. No, I'll be fine. Uber, take me and my newborn baby to Lady Gaga concert. You've been alive at this point for, I don't know, maybe like 30 minutes. And all of a sudden you're surrounded by 2 million people while paparazzi plays full blast. I mean, that would be that'd be kind of amazing. That'd be amazing. I wish I was that baby, but anyways, talk about sensory overload. I wonder if he showed up expecting to find a baby to kill. It would be impossible. He was arrested too. So it's so bizarre that it was 2 separate incidents. You had this terror group. You had this guy who was trying to sacrifice a baby. He was stopped. Again, we don't know. It could have been his baby. There could have been 1 million babies at the concert. The population could have been 1 million adults and 1 million babies. 2 million people total. Watch Lady Gaga. Luckily, this all was stopped. Absolutely fascinating, though, that it was even dreamed up in the first place, honestly. This sounds like something out of a movie. Terror attack getting ready to take on a pop concert. There's been movies like that, right? Jean-Claude Van Damme swings in. That was a hockey game. But my point is that this idea, what was the name of that? Iceman on frozen ground or whatever? Hot ice. Anyways, there's been tons of movies about terror attacks at public places like this, civilian nature public places, and the authorities swooping in the last minute and putting a stop to it, and then Jean-Claude Van Damme kicks a guy in the nuts. But unfortunately, we do see this stuff happen, and it doesn't get stopped. We have stories like this where it's stopped right out the gate. But then you did have that guy who brought that improvised explosive in a backpack to Ariana Grande showed up at her concert and blew up a bunch of girls who were leaving the concert. That happened. The authorities weren't able to stop that. And then, obviously I can list off a dozen examples. There was that terror group that went into this was in France, I believe, into the nightclub. It was like a concert, and they gunned down a bunch of people. Most of the time, I think these events get stopped. A lot of times, I think people have these ideas and they don't go through with it, so we never hear about it at all. And then sometimes the authorities, it gets past the planning stage. It gets to the point where they're building this stuff. Some reports said that a bomb was discovered near the concert site, while other reports said outside of the adult having bomb-making material, no assembled bombs were found. So very interesting. We're hearing different stuff come out. Most of the time, people just plan this stuff and they never go through with it, thankfully. Sometimes they get past the planning stage and the police intervene and they stop it. But every once in a while, this type of insanity does happen. These are cults that can affect people's lives. They had a goal. They wanted to become famous. They wanted to kill as many people in the queer community as they could. And they were stopped, thankfully. And then you have this guy trying to kill a baby. And he was not part of the group, apparently. That was a separate dude. Crazy. Absolutely crazy stuff. Thankfully, it was all stopped. But it really makes you kind of step back and go, man, the world is nuts. Sometimes it does feel like fiction. Sometimes it does seem like the world has a script. And luckily, so far, the good guys have won. Good guys have won. Jason, you obviously haven't read a history book. I mean, I guess if you look at the totality, if you look at everything in human history up to now, sure, Jason, the good guys have won, but there's been quite a few moments where things looked pretty bad. Yeah, I know, I kind of hesitated on that statement as well, but definitely, forget that I said that. Forget I said that the good guys won this night, for sure. People who want to sacrifice babies, people who want to sow terror, who want to kill people just because they don't like the group they're affiliated with. I mean, definitely, I think the good guys won this battle. It's very interesting. Like I said, there's a couple different groups that journalists have thought could have been involved in this, but the police aren't saying exactly who it is. I think it probably is some homegrown group in Brazil itself that were trying to become as famous as some of these other groups out there. You know, Brazil has a history of violence against the LGBT community. In 2023, it was the number one country that had the most murders based on gay identity. They were killing people simply because of their sexuality. It was the worst country for that. In 2009, the Sao Paulo Pride Parade was bombed. 40 people were injured. That was apparently done by a group called Hooligan Impact. So there are these groups that operate in Brazil, and they are attacking this community. So it could be one of these homegrown groups that was trying to get on the level of Hooligan Impact or 764, which apparently is another local group. It's an offshoot of a global cult terror group, however you want to label them. Crazy stuff, crazy stuff. Luckily, it was prevented, though. Luckily, no people, and especially no babies, were harmed at the Lady Gaga concert. She's like, oh, baby, I heard that you almost got injured at my concert. The baby's like, La Gaga. Her first words are my name. And they're like, no, it's just what babies say. No, she's saying my name. Come here, baby. No one will hurt you. But me. Takes a big bite out of the baby. We're like, wow, Jason, that's horrible. They're not naming the suspect. It was Lady Gaga. She was the one. She's like, oh, you know what would be perfect? During my satanic music concert, I'm going to sacrifice a baby. And all of her assistants are like, wait, what? They've put up with insanity for years. They've worked with her since the beginning. They're like, Stephanie, did you just say you were going to eat a baby? She's like, yeah, think about it. We all know my music is satanic. What if I did another satanic thing on top of it? Wouldn't that be double satanic? It's breaking Dead Rabbit Radio news bulletin. It's coming across my desk. You're like, Jason, don't you famously record this podcast in front of a $1,000 microphone taped to a Walmart folding chair? You don't have a desk. We're surprised if you even have a floor. I'm just suspended by cables as I'm recording the podcast. I got this breaking news segment. First off, Iris, we're going to have you back for tomorrow's episode. I don't know why I thought I could tell that previous story in 10 minutes. Anything that involves Lady Gaga and satanic sacrifices, invoking demons, obviously, I'm going to spend a long time talking about it. Originally, I was going to do that, and I was going to do the alien versus ghost story. We'll save that for tomorrow's episode. Iris will be back for tomorrow as well. As I was editing the episode, I'm recording this much later, right? I just edited everything you heard previously. This is breaking news. This is so weird. In the middle of that segment that I just did about the Lady Gaga story and the terror attack, I mentioned, I think there's two people that if they sold their soul to the devil, because we always hear these rumors, it would probably be one of these two people. They're the most likely. It was Lady Gaga and Seth McFarland. And I say I did episodes on those. I'll put them in the show notes. I know for a fact that I did an episode about Seth MacFarlane selling his soul to the devil. The title of the episode was, Did Seth MacFarlane Sell His Soul to the Devil? Or something along those lines. I made it very clear because every so often I'll write truly insane title episodes, headline that. Every so often I'll write a truly insane title to see how it gets picked up by the algorithm. Right? Seth MacFarlane, he's a pretty well-known guy. Did he sell his soul to the devil? It's a question many people are wondering. I remember when I was typing out the title of the episode, I thought, that's pretty inflammatory, right? I'm accusing a guy of selling his soul to the devil and all of the bad things that had happened and all the good things that had happened as well, i.e. his success. Here's the thing. I don't have any personal beef with Seth MacFarlane, but he might have sold his soul to the devil. And I don't really like his content. I'm always looking around at people, and I go, why are you watching this? Why are you watching this? Now, here's the thing. Yes, I can be an entertainment snob, but I mean, just like, Family Guy is not good. it's just not good. There was one season that I thought was funny, and they're on like season 20 right now. It's not a good show. You're like, oh, time to cancel my Patreon. Here, we can agree to disagree. Keep listening to my show. Then he was coming out with albums, like singing like the Rat Pack, being a crooner, and it's awful. It's not. Seth McFarland's listening to this podcast. He's, oh, I sold my soul to the devil, but the only person whose opinion ever really mattered is making fun of me. Here's the thing. I understand there's content that's not for everybody, and it has a fan base, and that's totally fine. There's a lot of musicians that I don't like, and they have fan bases. I don't run around talking about how terrible they are and things like that. But what I never understood about Seth MacFarlane was that people love his stuff. Like, mass amounts of people do. So I did an episode, like, Jason, sounds like sour grapes. You're like, what? No, all these people are stupid. The only way anyone could like this is with the devil's influence. No, and really the key of it was, Seth MacFarlane was supposed to fly out on 9/11. He was actually had a ticket for one of the planes that crashed into the World Trade Center. And I believe he overslept, or he was hungover or something like that, and he missed his plane. Which I'm glad, right? I'm not, as much as I don't like his content, I don't think it's bad for the world. I don't think he's a bad person. But it did seem weird. And around that time, he was really struggling. Family Guy was on the precipice of being canceled, and it was eventually canceled a couple months after 9/11. And then it just kind of floated around for a bit. Reruns on Adult Swim is what brought it back in DVD sales and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, his life turned around. Before, it was just another failed primetime cartoon like Capital Critters or Fish Police or any of the other cartoons that came out after The Simpsons. It was just another one of those cartoons that everyone would forget about because there's been so many of them. But after 9/11, and I want to be very clear, I'm not saying he caused 9/11. But that was the thing. After 9/11, his career has taken off to the point that everything he does is successful. And you go, well, Jason, maybe he's just a super talented guy. And I would agree with you on that in one way. But it's also weird that he gets to do the stuff that he does. I understand he does Family Guy and it's a big hit. I do not understand how he got a Las Vegas show. That just doesn't make any sense to me. I do not understand how he was able to convince Fox to let him do a science fiction show, The Orville, which I watched the first episode or two because I'm a big Star Trek fan. I was looking for something different, and it was okay. He always is able to get what he wants, except for my approval, except for the one thing that he truly wants, the approval of a man with no desk. It's not hate, it's bewilderment. I don't understand it. Now, here's the thing. I did an episode on this, and I titled it something along the lines of, Did Seth MacFarlane Sell His Soul to the Devil? It was the main story, and I remember when I put the title in, I thought, okay, this is kind of inflammatory. But it's not clickbait. I actually do talk about that in the episode. I wonder what'll happen with the algorithm. Well, the algorithm, notwithstanding, the episode's gone. The episode is nowhere to be found online. As I was editing the Lady Gaga one, the one that we just listened to, I was like, where's this episode? I can't find it. I go to deadrabbitradio.libsyn.com. That's where all my episodes are listed, and you can actually listen to them on your computer. And there's a search app. So that's often how I find stories. People go, hey, what episode was that where you talked about the space pancakes? Or what was the episode where you talked about Sam the Sandown Clown? Or whatever it is. I type it into the search bar, like even just pancake, and it'll pull up every time I put pancakes in the show notes or whatever. Oh, this is the episode. It's gone. The episode's nowhere to be found online. I searched for it on YouTube. It's gone as well. I went to ChatGPT. They can't find it. And they've been really good at finding obscure episodes for the shows, because they can not only scan the show notes, they listen to the episode. So then I pulled out my archive hard drive and plugged it in. And I'm still editing the episode, and I'm watching the hard drive search for any mention, because I knew Seth MacFarlane's name was in the title of the episode. Not only does the episode not exist online, it doesn't exist at all. According to every resource I have available, I never recorded that episode. But I know that I did. So I don't even really know what to make of that. That's super bizarre. And in fact, when I go into the search bar on the deadrabbitradio.libsyn.com, when I go to the official website, it shows, this was really interesting too, it shows when you type in Seth, it shows that I have searched for that episode before. It does an autocomplete, and there's multiple Seth, M-A-C, Seth, M-C, Seth, M-A-C, Farland. I put a D at the end of the name. Like, it shows that I had tried searching for the episode before. Now, I don't know when I looked for this episode before today. I found one mention of Seth McFarland on any of my episodes. I actually hopped onto the Discord, and Desecrated Marble was helping me out with this. I said, hey, does anyone remember me doing an episode? Desecrated Marble goes, yeah, you. I don't remember what the episode was, but you mentioned him before, and you kind of talked about him selling his soul, and we were able to track it down to an episode called Shhh. But that's not the episode that I'm looking for, and I bet you anything when I recorded the episode, I'll put that episode in the show notes, I was probably looking for that original Seth MacFarlane episode then as well. If I was making reference to something, I'd probably say in that episode, hey guys, I had talked about this before, but according to the timeline, according to anything that I can look at via the web or via my own external hard drives that have copies of all my episodes, in triplicate, I have 3 of these hard drives, the episode was never recorded, and I remember recording it, and I remember titling it that way, and I remember going, okay, we'll see what the algorithm does about this, because it's kind of inflammatory, we'll see what happens. And I even remember in the back of my head, because I do this, I think about this when I do the Lady Gaga stuff, and I think about this when I did the Seth MacFarlane episode. Every so often I go, I'm going to title episode Seth MacFarlane Sell His Soul to the Devil. You know, what if he came across that? How would it make him feel? Doesn't mean I don't put out the episode. It doesn't mean that I don't put his name in the title. But I do think about that. You know, I go ahead and do it anyway. You're like, Jason, that's kind of worse. That's kind of worse that you do acknowledge that you could be hurting someone's feelings, and you're like, whatever, I'm going to do it anyways. But I don't know where this episode's at. And I'm not approaching this as a request for searching for it, although that is definitely welcome. I'm wondering if the episode got completely erased. Not in the fact, because I started to think Spotify must have taken it down, or even Libsyn, who's my podcast provider, took it down. Maybe someone requested it to be taken down, which has happened before. I did an episode as Bill Gates, the Antichrist, and obviously it was a joke episode. It was joking about it. The Antichrist is real, and Bill Gates is real, but we talk about a downgrade. Talk about if that guy was supposed to be the enemy of mankind. He's kind of a dork. And I was making jokes, and I was referencing some belief that he's the Antichrist. Spotify took it off. You can't listen to that episode on Spotify. And I got a direct email from that. I wonder how many episodes have disappeared that I don't even know, because we've had over 1,400 of them. I started thinking, well, maybe Seth MacFarlane or one of his people called up Libsyn and said, hey, we got Mr. MacFarlane here. He's crying. His feelings are hurt. Can you take the episode down? While that's possible, they didn't break into my house and remove it from all of my hard drives. So where's that episode? And I'm asking that in a timeline sense. I'm asking that in a fractured reality sense, because that... And I remember recording that episode so much that I remember thinking about the title, whether it was insensitive. And I mean, obviously there's a computer history of me looking for the episode previously, because it shows up, it auto-fills in different spellings of Seth MacFarlane's name. Mac versus Mick and all of this stuff. I couldn't find it then, and I can't find it now. Super weird. Super weird. I honestly am thinking some sort of paranormal event happened there. So that is something I'm going to continue to look into. I think now what I have to do is redo that episode, do a full length. I gave you a little brief. I'm going to build a chart showing all the reasons why I think Seth MacFarlane sold his soul to the devil. You're like, Jason, we know the reasons why you think that, because you think he sucks, and other people think he's super funny. Yeah, that's kind of it, right? But let me present it in a different way, because I am sure I can find some other stuff. It's frustrating, because I remember doing that episode. I even have archives of all of my show notes. It's not in there either. So did I record it in an alternate dimension? Did I have a fever dream that I recorded it? Because it was like a deep dive into it. It wasn't just an offhand mention. It wasn't the second of 3 stories, which is the episode of Shhh. It was, this is why I think he sold his soul to the devil. But then I was also just now thinking about Rudy Jazz during our 7th anniversary live stream. I believe it was Rudy. Brought up the whole thing about Roy J and whether or not this old British comedian is a digital demon who's changing the timeline. I kind of I think I'm going to combine those 2 stories because it's kind of the same thing. What if Roy J will cover, you're like, wait, what is that? You're like, well, no, cover that now. We don't have time. I got to get my notes together, but I think we're going to do that as Wednesday's episode because that is a fascinating story. Can a demon change the timeline, insert themselves, and create a false history? A digital footprint that never existed before the demon entered our world. I really want to cover that story. We'll cover that on Wednesday. But also, what if Seth McFarlane is doing the same thing? And he sucks. That was even worse, right? What if he's only changing my timeline? I was like, what? I recorded this episode. Why did it disappear again? Well, anyways, so that'll be Wednesday's episode. Tomorrow's episode, we're going to have Iris Kit back. We're going to do the alien ghost story, which I've been talking about for weeks now. It's a really, really cool one, but I haven't had a chance to record it. But all that stuff is coming up. We're going to end today's episode. Sorry for the chaos, but it is good to be back. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be your email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys.